Given the fact that I review drones and do drone tutorials on YouTube, you would like to think that I would know a little bit better. However, just recently I've been making a big mistake when I've been out flying my drones that quite literally recently could have cost me my DJI Mini 4 Pro. It's something so simple that most of us ignore most of the times that we fly, and if you happen to just skip this step or make the same mistake, it could result in you losing your drone as well. So let's get into it. So I just did what any normal drone flyer does. I took off the gimbal cover, unfolded the props, put the drone on the ground, turned it on, booted up the DJI Fly app, skipped through all the usual steps that we usually do, put the drone straight up in the air as quick as possible to capture the subject that I'd chosen for my video. After completing the flight, I landed the drone, put the drone back in my bag, and everything seemed exactly as it should be. Now, if you're anything like me, once you've been flying your drone for a while, as you know, they may pick up some bug splatters, etc. So it's always nice, every few flights to just get it back out the bag once you're at home and just give it a little wipe over, give it a clean, and just make sure it's in tip-top condition. However, this is where I noticed something absolutely incredible, because as I was cleaning my drone, as I went to this front prop, I noticed on my DJI Mini 4 Pro that one of the screws had actually started unwinding itself. Now, as you can see, this resulted in a huge amount of movement on this prop, and that's certainly not how it's supposed to be. Yes, there should be a little bit, but certainly not this much. And of course, this screw was working its way all the way out. Not only that, but I noticed that one of my props had a big chip out of it, which certainly is going to affect its performance, its integrity, and could have resulted in that prop actually disintegrating while the drone was in flight. A major risk of causing a huge crash with my DJI Mini 4 Pro. So what could cause somebody as experienced as me, and I'm sure many of you watching this video, to ignore the critical step of checking the props before you go out flying? Well, it's a phrase called normalcy bias, essentially because nothing has ever really gone wrong, so we just continue to assume that's going to be the case. Now, when it comes to the DJI Fly app, we do get the warning to check the props if you've seen this message before, but it's just too easy to just swipe straight off it. Of course, flying becomes very routine, we're used to how the process goes, and we start to get a little bit complacent, and this can catch people out, even experienced drone flyers like myself. Now, of course, the props are the most critical part of your drone, because that's what's keeping your drone up in the air, and any tiny issues can have huge consequences. Damaged props can cause your drone to vibrate, so your footage is going to be shaky. Of course, if you've got a nick in your prop, that could literally expand and split across the prop, causing that prop to actually shatter in flight. Or indeed, if your screws are not tight, as in this scenario, then that prop could detach itself at any point in flight, potentially resulting in a huge crash for your drone. Okay, so it's really critical that we are checking the condition of our props before we go out flying. Now, to check our props, it is incredibly simple. All we need to do is just spin each prop by hand without the drone turned on, just to make sure that it feels nice and smooth. We can inspect the props for cracks, chips or bends. We can check that the screws or clips are snug, not too loose or over tightened. And the benefit is DJI even give us a nice little screwdriver when we buy our drone to enable us to adjust these screws and make sure they are nice and tight. Of course, not over tight. We don't want to start stripping the thread for the little screw, but tight enough to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. And just to err on the side of caution, if you have had a particular rough landing or a crash landing, or you've dropped it, or indeed if you've landed in some long grass, or you've been chopping up some sort of twigs on leaves or branches on your way down, it's always a good idea, just as a precaution, even if you cannot see a huge amount of physical damage, just to be on the safe side, if you've got some spare props, I would highly recommend changing them. And what makes this even more ironic is for some time now I've been using an app called Drone Companion, and on the pre-flight checklist it literally tells me to check the props, and of course You know, I even had that reminder right there and I still ignored it. A classic case of normalcy bias. However, of course, not only does Drone Companion have this pre-flight checklist, it has every resource a drone flyer could possibly need. We've got one of the most comprehensive weather forecasts of any app out there, focused around drone flyers. We've got our no flight zones. We've even got a handy ND filter calculator for those of you that want to use ND filters but not quite sure which one to use, and something I've not seen on any app or anywhere else, and it's generally what I teach on my YouTube channel. What we can do is enter the questionnaire, pick the drone that we have, our experience level, where we want to fly, and what we want to capture, and it will provide us with the perfect settings for you, the user. I would highly recommend checking out Drone Companion. There is a 24-hour free trial for all of these features, and I will leave a link in the video description so you can go check that out for yourself. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, even somebody like myself that does reviews, tutorials, and basically tells my viewers what they should be doing can fall victim to normalcy bias. But let me tell you, seeing that screw unwinding itself and that chip in the prop that I never expected to see was a real wake-up call, and it's just worth taking that extra 30 seconds before you begin your flight just to check the condition of your drone to make sure it's exactly as it should be, because ultimately the one time you can guarantee that you don't check it will be the time your drone pays the ultimate price. So please do let me know in the comment section below whether you do religiously check all the condition of your drone before you go out flying, or whether you have got into that habit like me of just expecting everything will be okay each flight, getting a little bit complacent and generally skip this step. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. However, that being said, if you did find this video useful, please do give it a big thumbs up. It tells YouTube algorithm more people just like you might want to watch my content. Subscribe if you're awesome. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.